Have you ever stopped to wonder why some of the brightest minds in history reported feeling deeply lonely, misunderstood, and even tormented? Why do extremely intelligent people often struggle with anxiety, insomnia, and a constant sense of not belonging anywhere? The answer might shock you. High intelligence comes with a psychological price that few can imagine. If you're someone who overthinks, who feels like your mind never rests, who notices patterns that others ignore, and has felt different since childhood, this video will reveal scientific truths that finally explain why you are the way you are. Psychology has discovered that highly intelligent people face unique challenges that most of the population will never experience. Get ready to discover 6 surprising facts about the reality of having an exceptional mind, and why it can be both a blessing and a curse you carry every single day. The prison of overthinking. Your mind is running right now. Even as you watch this, there's a constant stream of thoughts flowing through your consciousness, like an endless river that refuses to slow down. For highly intelligent people, this isn't just an occasional experience, it's their default state of existence, every single day, from the moment they wake up until they finally fall asleep at night, if sleep even comes easily. People who think too much often find themselves trapped in a mental maze where every thought branches into 10 more thoughts, and each of those splits again into countless possibilities. You analyze conversations from 3 days ago, searching for hidden meanings that probably weren't even there. You replay scenarios in your head, imagining different outcomes, better responses, alternative choices you could have made. Your brain doesn't have an off switch, and this relentless mental activity becomes exhausting in ways that others simply cannot comprehend. The psychological research reveals something fascinating yet troubling about this pattern. When your intelligence level rises above a certain threshold, your brain begins to function differently from the average person. You don't just think about things. You dissect them, examine them from every possible angle, and question assumptions that most people accept without a second thought. This sounds like a superpower, and in many ways it is, but it comes with a cost that weighs heavily on your daily life. Imagine trying to enjoy a simple moment, like watching a sunset or having dinner with friends. While others are present and relaxed, your mind is somewhere else entirely. You're thinking about that work project, analyzing the subtext of something someone said earlier, worrying about future scenarios that might never happen, or diving deep into abstract concepts that suddenly captured your attention. This constant mental activity creates a barrier between you and the simple joys that others seem to access so effortlessly. The exhaustion that comes from overthinking isn't just mental, it manifests physically too. Your body carries the tension of a mind that never stops working. You might clench your jaw without realizing it, feel tightness in your shoulders, or experience headaches that seem to have no medical cause. Sleep becomes elusive because even when your body is tired, your mind keeps spinning, analyzing, questioning, and processing information like a computer that refuses to shut down. What makes this particularly challenging is that most people don't understand what you're going through. When you try to explain that you're exhausted from thinking, they look at you with confusion. How can thinking be tiring? They don't realize that your brain processes information at a different speed and depth than theirs. While they can watch a movie and simply enjoy the story, you're analyzing the cinematography, questioning plot holes, predicting outcomes, and thinking about the deeper themes, all simultaneously and involuntarily. Highly intelligent people struggle with this constant mental activity because there's no escape from their own minds. You can't just decide to stop thinking deeply about things. It's not a choice you make. It's simply how your brain operates. You see connections everywhere, patterns in chaos, meanings behind meanings. This heightened awareness becomes a prison where the bars are made of your own thoughts, and there's no key to unlock the door. The irony is painful. The same intelligence that allows you to solve complex problems, understand difficult concepts, and see things others miss also prevents you from experiencing peace. You achieve things that impress others, but inside, you're constantly battling with a mind that won't give you rest. Success in the external world doesn't translate to tranquility in your internal world. Research in cognitive psychology shows that highly intelligent individuals often report feeling mentally drained even on days when they haven't done anything physically demanding. Their brains consume enormous amounts of energy through constant analysis and processing. It's like having a high-performance engine that's always running at full speed, burning through fuel even when the car is parked. This overthinking also affects your relationships in ways that might surprise you. You read too much into text messages, analyze tone and word choice, and create entire narratives about what someone might be thinking or feeling. A simple "okay" in a message can send you spiraling into analysis mode, wondering if there's hidden disappointment or anger behind that single word. You're not paranoid. Your brain is just wired to look for patterns and meanings everywhere, even where none exist. The weight of carrying all these thoughts becomes heavier as time passes. You start to wonder if there's something wrong with you, if other people's minds are this noisy, if there's a way to find silence in the chaos. You might try meditation, exercise, or various techniques to quiet your mind, but often these provide only temporary relief. The overthinking returns like a persistent tide, washing over you again and again. What you need to understand is that this isn't a flaw or a problem to fix. It's a fundamental characteristic of how your brain works. The challenge isn't to stop thinking deeply, but to learn to coexist with a mind that operates at this intensity. And recognizing this truth opens the door to understanding something even deeper about what it means to live with high intelligence, a feeling that follows you everywhere you go. Why you never feel at home. There's this strange sensation that intelligent people carry with them, no matter where they are or who they're with. It's hard to describe, but if you've felt it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You could be surrounded by people, in the town where you grew up, doing things you've done 1,000 times before, and still feel like you're somehow on the outside looking in. Like you're visiting a place where everyone else belongs, but you're just passing through. People with high intelligence feel different because they experience the world through a lens that doesn't quite match what everyone else sees. From childhood, you probably noticed this disconnect. While other kids were content with simple games and straightforward conversations, you were already asking questions that made adults uncomfortable. Why do we do things this way? What's the point of these rules? Couldn't there be a better approach? Your mind was already operating on a different frequency, and that frequency never changed. The world just kept expecting you to tune into theirs. This feeling of not belonging isn't about being antisocial or difficult. It's about existing in spaces where the conversations feel shallow, where the topics everyone gets excited about seem trivial, where the jokes don't land quite right because your humor works on multiple levels that others don't catch. You learn to smile and nod, to play along, to pretend you fit in. But inside, there's this quiet voice reminding you that you're different, that you're alone even in a crowded room. The workplace becomes another stage where this plays out. Your colleagues might discuss weekend plans or popular shows, and you participate because that's what people do. But inside, you're thinking about concepts and ideas that you can't share because they would sound pretentious or weird. You've learned that talking about what genuinely interests you often leads to blank stares or comments like, "You think too much," or "Why do you care about that?" So you keep those thoughts to yourself, building walls between who you are and who you pretend to be. Family gatherings can be especially painful. These are the people who've known you your whole life, yet somehow the gap between you and them feels wider than ever. They love you, you love them, but you're speaking different languages. They don't understand why you need time alone to recharge, why small talk drains you, why you'd rather read or think than watch whatever's on television. They mean well when they tell you to lighten up or stop being so serious. But each comment reinforces that feeling of being fundamentally different from everyone around you. If you're very intelligent, you may have tried countless times to find your tribe, that group of people who get you without explanation. Maybe you thought college would be different, or that certain career paths would surround you with like-minded individuals. Sometimes you find glimpses of connection, brief moments where someone understands what you're saying without you having to over-explain. But even then, the connection often feels incomplete, like you're still holding back parts of yourself to avoid overwhelming them. The internet promised to solve this problem. Finally, a way to connect with people across the world who might share your wavelength. And yes, online communities can provide some relief, but they also highlight how rare true understanding is. Even in spaces designed for intelligent discussion, you often find yourself either bored by surface-level analysis or frustrated by people who confuse intelligence with arrogance. The search for home continues, now spanning both physical and digital worlds, yet that sense of belonging remains elusive. What compounds this struggle is that you can't really explain it without sounding like you think you're better than everyone else. You're not trying to be superior. You're just different. But try telling someone that you feel alienated because your mind works differently, and watch how quickly they become defensive or dismissive. So you stop trying to explain, you stop seeking understanding, and you accept that this permanent sense of displacement is simply part of your reality. Late at night, when you're alone with your thoughts, this feeling intensifies. You wonder if there's anyone out there who truly sees you, who understands the full spectrum of who you are without you having to dim your light or simplify your thoughts. You wonder if you'll ever find a place, a person, a community where you can exhale fully and just be yourself without translation or performance. The longing for that sense of home becomes a quiet ache that lives beneath everything else you do. This isn't just about feeling special or unique in some positive way. It's about carrying a fundamental loneliness that doesn't go away no matter how successful you become or how many people surround you. You can have friends, family, partners, colleagues, a whole network of relationships, and still feel like you're experiencing life from behind glass, watching everyone else connect in ways that seem to come naturally to them, but remain frustratingly out of reach for you. But here's what makes this even more complex. This sense of being different, of not belonging, connects directly to another aspect of high intelligence that we need to talk about. Because feeling like you don't fit in is one thing, but understanding why you perceive things so differently from others reveals an even deeper truth about how your mind operates. The weight of seeing what others don't. Walking through life with heightened awareness is like having the volume turned up on everything while everyone else listens at normal levels. You notice the small shifts in someone's expression that signal discomfort before they even realize it themselves. You catch inconsistencies in stories, spot patterns in behavior, and see connections between events that seem random to everyone else. This isn't something you try to do. It's automatic, constant, and absolutely exhausting. Intelligent minds rarely feel at peace because they're processing layers of information that most people don't even register. When someone tells you a story, you're not just hearing the words, you're analyzing the context, questioning the gaps, noticing what they're not saying, and forming a complex picture that's probably closer to reality than the version they presented. You see the contradiction between what people claim they value and how they actually behave. You recognize patterns in society, in relationships, in systems that others accept without question. This heightened perception sounds like a gift, and sometimes it is. You can solve problems others can't because you see angles they miss. You can predict outcomes with unsettling accuracy because you notice the early warning signs that everyone else overlooks. You understand complex systems quickly because you naturally see how all the pieces fit together. But these abilities come with a burden that grows heavier every single day. The burden is this. Once you see something, you can't unsee it. Once you understand how something works, you can't pretend you don't know. You're aware of manipulation tactics in advertising, politics, and personal relationships. You notice when people are being dishonest, even when they're lying to themselves. You see the flaws in systems that everyone else trusts blindly, and you carry all this knowledge around with no way to turn it off or ignore what you know to be true. This creates a strange kind of isolation. You're watching everyone else move through life with a simplicity and ease that you can never access. They trust because they don't see reasons not to. They're happy because they don't notice all the things that could go wrong. They're content because they don't question the foundations of what they've been taught. Meanwhile, you're seeing cracks in everything, questioning everything, unable to accept simple answers to complex questions. Relationships become complicated when you see too much. You notice when someone is interested in you for the wrong reasons before anything bad happens. You catch micro-expressions that reveal someone's true feelings, even when their words say something different. You understand the psychology behind certain behaviors, which means you can predict relationship patterns before they fully play out. This awareness should protect you, but instead it often leaves you feeling cynical and guarded, unable to embrace things with the innocence that others seem to maintain. The workplace reveals another dimension of this challenge. You see inefficiencies, flawed logic, and better ways to do things everywhere you look. But suggesting improvements often backfires because people feel threatened or think you're being difficult. You notice when leadership makes decisions based on ego rather than logic, when policies contradict each other, when the company culture doesn't match the stated values. You see all of this clearly, but you're expected to go along with it anyway, to pretend you don't notice the obvious problems right in front of you. What makes this particularly painful is watching preventable disasters unfold in slow motion. You saw it coming. You noticed the warning signs early. Maybe you even tried to say something, but nobody listened because they didn't see what you saw. Then when things go wrong exactly as you predicted, there's no satisfaction in being right, just frustration and sadness that it could have been avoided if anyone had paid attention. This constant awareness affects how you consume information too. You can't just enjoy entertainment without analyzing it. You notice plot holes, logical inconsistencies, character motivations that don't make sense. You see the formulas behind popular content, the manipulation in how stories are framed, the biases in how information is presented. What others experience as entertainment or education, you experience as a puzzle to decode, a mystery to solve, a system to understand. The news becomes especially difficult to process. You don't just read headlines, you question sources, consider alternative explanations, think about what information might be missing, and recognize when narratives are being shaped rather than reported. This critical thinking is valuable, but it also means you can never fully trust anything at face value. You're constantly fact-checking, cross-referencing, and building your own understanding, because you've seen too many times how information gets distorted. Social situations drain you not just because of the overthinking we discussed earlier, but because you're picking up on so much more than what's being said. You notice group dynamics, power plays, unspoken tensions, and hidden agendas. A simple dinner party isn't just a meal with friends. It's a complex social ecosystem that you're analyzing even as you're trying to participate in it. You see who's really controlling the conversation, who's being excluded, who's faking interest, and who's genuinely connecting. This level of perception creates a profound loneliness because you're experiencing a different reality than the people around you. They're living in the movie, and you're watching the movie while simultaneously seeing all the cameras, lights, and crew members that make it work. You can't unsee the mechanics, can't unknow what you know, can't dumb down your awareness to match theirs. You're trapped in a state of hypervigilance that you never chose and can't escape. And this hypervigilance connects directly to what might be the most challenging aspect of high intelligence. Something that affects your daily life in ways that go far beyond just thinking differently. The loneliness of always being ahead. Time moves differently when your mind races ahead of everyone around you. While others are still processing the first step, you've already mapped out steps 2 through 10 and identified 3 potential problems that nobody else has considered yet. This sounds efficient, maybe even enviable, but living constantly in the future while everyone else occupies the present creates a special kind of loneliness that's hard to put into words. You're in a meeting at work and someone proposes an idea that sounds good on the surface. Within seconds, your brain has already run through the implementation, spotted the obstacles, considered the unintended consequences, and arrived at the conclusion that this won't work the way they think it will. But the meeting continues, with everyone getting excited about the proposal, and you're sitting there torn between speaking up and letting them figure it out on their own. Either way, you're alone with your understanding, separated from the group by the speed and depth of your thinking. This pattern repeats itself everywhere. In conversations, you've already reached the conclusion before others finish laying out their premise. In planning sessions, you've thought through scenarios that won't be relevant for months or years. In relationships, you've anticipated problems and emotional patterns long before they manifest. Being ahead sounds like an advantage, but it's actually a form of isolation because you're experiencing a different timeline than everyone else. The frustration builds when you try to share what you see. You explain your concerns about a project, a decision, or a relationship dynamic, but nobody takes it seriously because the problems haven't happened yet. They tell you you're overthinking, being pessimistic, or borrowing trouble. Then, months later, exactly what you predicted comes to pass, and while they're surprised, you're just tired. Tired of being right. Tired of seeing things coming. Tired of the loneliness that comes with living ahead of the curve. Friendships struggle under this weight. Your friends are dealing with problems you've already worked through in your own life years ago. They're excited about insights that feel basic to you. They're just discovering concepts you've been thinking about for ages. You care about them. You want to support them. But there's an invisible distance between where they are and where you are. You can reach back to meet them where they're at, but you can't fully inhabit that space anymore because you've already moved beyond it. Dating becomes its own special challenge. You meet someone, and within a few conversations, you've already assessed compatibility, spotted potential issues, and mapped out how the relationship would likely unfold. This isn't cynicism. It's pattern recognition based on experience and observation. But try explaining to someone that you already know this probably won't work out when you've only been on 3 dates. They think you're not giving it a chance, but you've already given it more analysis than they'll apply to the entire relationship. What makes this particularly painful is that you're often right. Your predictions come true not because you're psychic, but because you understand patterns, psychology, and human behavior at a deeper level. You see the early indicators that others miss. You recognize red flags that haven't fully emerged yet. You understand how certain personality traits will interact over time. This knowledge doesn't make you feel smart. It makes you feel alone, because you're navigating relationships with information that your partner doesn't have and might not believe if you shared it. Career advancement presents another dimension of this loneliness. You see opportunities and threats in the industry before they become obvious to your colleagues or leadership. You understand where things are heading, what skills will become important, what approaches are about to become obsolete. But organizations move slowly, and people resist change. So you're stuck waiting for everyone else to catch up to what you already know needs to happen. You're living in tomorrow while being forced to operate in today. This gap between your timeline and everyone else's creates a constant internal conflict. Part of you wants to slow down, to stop analyzing everything so far in advance, to just be present in the moment like everyone else seems capable of doing. But you can't turn off your ability to see patterns and project forward. Your mind automatically runs simulations, considers possibilities, and arrives at conclusions whether you want it to or not. You're cursed with foresight in a world that only responds to hindsight. The loneliness intensifies because you can't really talk about this without sounding arrogant. How do you explain that you're isolated by being ahead without implying that you're better than others? You're not trying to be superior. You're just describing your experience. But the words themselves sound presumptuous, so you stay quiet about this aspect of your struggle, adding another layer of isolation to an already lonely experience. Late at night, when the world is quiet and you're alone with your thoughts, you wonder what it would be like to experience life without always projecting into the future. What would it feel like to be surprised by outcomes instead of having predicted them? What would relationships be like if you didn't already know how they would probably end? What would work be like if you could just focus on today's tasks without seeing all the problems coming down the pipeline? You imagine a simpler existence, but you know you can never access it because your mind doesn't work that way. This experience of being ahead connects to something even more fundamental about high intelligence, the constant state of mental activity that we touched on earlier, but need to examine more deeply, because what we're really talking about is the impossibility of finding peace when your mind operates at this level. When turning off your mind becomes impossible. There's a moment that comes at the end of every day when most people can finally relax. They finish their work, come home, and gradually wind down. Their minds shift gears, settle into a calmer state, and eventually they sleep without much trouble. For you, that moment never arrives. Your mind doesn't have a shutdown sequence. It just keeps running, processing, analyzing, questioning, and creating new problems to solve, even when there's nothing that actually needs solving right now. Intelligent minds rarely feel at peace because they're not designed for stillness. Your brain is like a powerful engine that's always running, consuming energy, generating heat, and refusing to idle quietly in neutral. Even when you're supposedly relaxing, watching something mindless on television or scrolling through your phone, there's a background process running in your mind, working on problems, replaying conversations, planning for tomorrow, or diving down rabbit holes of thought that have nothing to do with what's in front of you. Sleep becomes a battlefield. You lie in bed, exhausted from the day, desperately wanting to rest, but your mind has other plans. It starts reviewing everything that happened, analyzing what you said and how people responded, planning for tomorrow's challenges, worrying about things you can't control, or suddenly becoming fascinated by random questions that demand immediate mental exploration. You try counting backwards, focusing on your breathing, or any of the other techniques people suggest, But your brain treats these as just more things to think about rather than pathways to rest. The 3 in the morning wake-up is something you know too well. You fall asleep eventually, only to jolt awake a few hours later with your mind already at full speed. Maybe it's anxiety about something coming up. Maybe it's a problem you're trying to solve. Or maybe it's absolutely nothing specific. Just your brain deciding that right now is the perfect time to be fully alert and thinking intensely about everything and nothing all at once. You lie there knowing you need more sleep, but your mind has already started its daily operations, and there's no putting it back to sleep. This constant mental activity affects every attempt at relaxation. You try meditation, and instead of finding inner peace, you spend the entire session thinking about whether you're doing it right, analyzing the technique, getting distracted by sounds or sensations, and basically turning meditation itself into another mental task to optimize. You try exercise, which helps temporarily, but even during physical activity, your mind is somewhere else, working through problems or creating new ones to explore. Vacations don't provide the relief they're supposed to offer. While others return from time off feeling refreshed and recharged, you come back exhausted in different ways. Your body might have rested, but your mind never stopped working. You spent the entire vacation thinking about work you're missing, planning for your return, analyzing your travel companion's behavior, or diving deep into thoughts about the places you visited and what they mean in some larger context that nobody else is considering. Hobbies become complicated too. You can't just enjoy something casually. You need to understand it completely, master it, or at least analyze it thoroughly. You pick up a simple hobby, and within weeks you've researched it extensively, understand the advanced concepts, and are already thinking about how to innovate or improve upon existing approaches. What should be relaxing recreation becomes another arena for your mind to operate at full intensity. Conversations about mental health become frustrating because most advice doesn't account for how your mind works. People suggest being present, living in the moment, not worrying about things you can't control. These suggestions make sense in theory, but they're built for minds that can actually choose to stop thinking about something. Your mind doesn't work that way. You can't just decide not to think about something. That decision itself becomes something to think about. And now you're thinking about the thing you're trying not to think about. The exhaustion becomes your constant companion. Not just physical tiredness, but a deep mental fatigue that comes from never being able to truly rest. Your brain is burning energy at high rates all the time, and there's no way to refuel completely, because you never fully power down. You wake up tired because your mind was working all night. You go through the day tired because your mental activity never decreases. You go to bed tired, and the cycle continues with no real relief in sight. What compounds this problem is the guilt you feel about being tired. After all, you're not doing physical labor. You're not working harder than anyone else in obvious, measurable ways. So why are you so exhausted? Why do you need so much recovery time? Why does socializing drain you so completely? You feel like you should be able to handle more, do more, be more energetic. But the reality is that your mental activity is consuming resources at a rate that others don't experience. Social obligations become especially draining because they require you to manage both the external interaction and your internal thought processes simultaneously. You're having a conversation while also monitoring how you're coming across, analyzing what the other person is really saying, thinking about how to respond, considering the implications of various topics, and trying to seem normal and engaged when your mind is actually juggling all these different threads at once. After an hour of this, you're completely drained, while the other person feels energized by the connection. The search for peace becomes an obsession in itself. You try everything: different sleep techniques, various forms of meditation, breathing exercises, medication, therapy, lifestyle changes, looking for something that will finally give your mind permission to rest. Some things help a little, temporarily, but nothing truly solves the fundamental issue that your brain is wired to operate at high intensity all the time. You're fighting against your own nature, trying to force a machine designed for complexity to accept simplicity and stillness. Late at night, in those quiet hours when the world sleeps and you remain awake, you think about what peace would actually feel like. Not the absence of thought, but maybe just a slower pace, fewer simultaneous threads, less intensity in how you process everything. You wonder if other people actually experience the calm and quiet they seem to have, or if everyone is secretly struggling like you but hiding it better. You wonder if this is just who you'll always be. Someone who lives with a mind that never truly rests. This inability to find mental peace connects directly to the final truth about high intelligence that we need to address, because everything we've discussed so far builds toward understanding the real cost of living with a mind that operates at this level, the hidden price of superior intelligence. We've reached the point where everything comes together, where all the pieces we've explored connect to reveal a truth that rarely gets discussed openly. High intelligence isn't just a gift or a neutral trait. It fundamentally changes the experience of being human in ways that create both advantages and costs. And the costs, the ones we've been examining throughout this entire discussion, accumulate into a price that you pay every single day of your life. The price starts with isolation. Not the kind of loneliness that comes from being physically alone, but the deeper isolation of experiencing reality differently from almost everyone around you. You carry insights, awareness, and understanding that you can't fully share because they don't translate well to those who don't see what you see. This creates an invisible wall between you and others, even people you love, even people who love you back. You can have deep relationships, meaningful connections, and genuine intimacy, but there remains a part of your experience that stays locked inside because nobody else quite understands it. People with high intelligence feel different because they are different. And that difference exacts a toll on mental health that research is only beginning to fully document. Anxiety becomes common because you see all the things that could go wrong, all the variables in play, all the outcomes that others don't consider. Depression can follow because the world doesn't match what your intelligence tells you it could be, should be, or needs to be. You see the gap between human potential and human reality, and living in that gap every day wears you down in ways that are hard to explain to anyone who doesn't feel it themselves. The professional world offers rewards for intelligence, better jobs, higher pay, more recognition, but these external successes don't resolve the internal struggles. You might excel in your career, while simultaneously feeling exhausted by the mental effort required to navigate systems that seem obviously flawed to you. You might earn respect and admiration while feeling fundamentally misunderstood. The achievements stack up, but they don't necessarily translate into happiness, peace, or satisfaction, because the things that torture your mind have nothing to do with professional accomplishments. Relationships bear the weight of this price in countless small ways. You love someone, but you've already thought through how your differences might create conflict down the road. You're enjoying a moment with friends, but part of your mind is analyzing the group dynamics and noticing things you wish you didn't see. You want to be present, but your brain is always operating on multiple levels simultaneously, preventing the simple, uncomplicated connection that seems to come naturally to others. This doesn't make relationships impossible, but it makes them more complex, more tiring, and sometimes more painful than they need to be. The price includes chronic exhaustion that no amount of sleep or rest can fully cure. Your brain is working constantly, processing information at higher speeds and greater depth than the average person, and this creates a level of mental fatigue that others struggle to understand. You're tired not from doing too much, but from being too aware, thinking too deeply, and never getting a real break from your own consciousness. This exhaustion affects everything: your mood, your relationships, your ability to enjoy simple pleasures, and your overall quality of life. Health problems often follow because your body wasn't designed to sustain this level of constant mental activity. Stress-related issues, sleep disorders, tension, headaches, and other physical manifestations of mental overactivity become familiar companions. Your mind pushes your body beyond what's sustainable, and over time, the body protests in ways that can't be ignored. The intelligence that helps you succeed in some areas becomes the thing that undermines your physical well-being in others. There's also a price paid in missed experiences. While your intelligence allows you to understand complex concepts and see deep patterns, it can prevent you from experiencing things with the simplicity and joy that comes from not analyzing everything. You can't watch a movie without noticing the techniques. You can't enjoy a conversation without analyzing the subtext. You can't relax on vacation without your mind continuing its endless processing. The very thing that gives you depth takes away a certain kind of lightness that might make life easier to bear. The constant comparison creates another layer of cost. You watch people around you seeming content with things that bore you, happy with explanations that don't satisfy you, comfortable with ambiguity that drives you crazy. Part of you envies their ability to accept things at face value, to enjoy life without constantly questioning it, to find peace in simplicity. But you can't access that experience because your mind won't let you. You're stuck being who you are, watching others live in ways you can't replicate no matter how hard you try. Financial costs accumulate too, though we rarely talk about them. The therapy to manage anxiety and depression, the sleep aids and medications, the books, courses, and programs trying to help you find peace or purpose. The career changes when you can't tolerate environments that feel intellectually stifling. The relationship challenges that sometimes end in expensive ways. Intelligence doesn't protect you from financial struggle. Sometimes it creates unique versions of it that others don't face. Perhaps the deepest price is the loss of innocence that comes earlier and more completely than for most people. You see through illusions quickly. You understand how systems work and who they serve. You recognize patterns in human behavior that others don't notice until much later in life, if ever. This awareness makes you wise in some ways, but it also takes away the protective naivety that helps people maintain hope, trust, and optimism. You see too much, too soon, too clearly, and there's no way to unsee it. The question that haunts many highly intelligent people is whether the price is worth it. Nobody asked you if you wanted this kind of mind. You didn't choose to process information this way, to see patterns everywhere, to think at this depth and speed. It's simply who you are, how you're wired, the hand you were dealt. But living with it every day, feeling the weight of all these costs, you sometimes wonder what life would be like with a different kind of mind, one that could rest, could accept, could simply be without constantly analyzing and questioning everything. The truth is that there's no simple answer to whether it's worth it. Intelligence brings real benefits, problem-solving abilities, deep understanding, creative insights, professional success. But it also brings real costs: isolation, exhaustion, anxiety, and a kind of loneliness that's hard to explain to anyone who hasn't felt it. You can't separate the two. The same mind that gives you advantages also creates challenges. They're not separate features. They're different aspects of the same fundamental reality of how your brain works. What matters now is recognizing that if you experience these struggles, you're not broken or flawed. You're dealing with the natural consequences of having a mind that operates at high intensity. The overthinking, the feeling of not belonging, the weight of seeing what others don't, the loneliness of being ahead, the inability to find peace, and the accumulated price of it all. These aren't problems to solve as much as realities to understand and learn to live with. The path forward isn't about changing who you are or somehow reducing your intelligence. It's about finding ways to coexist with a mind that works this way. It's about building support systems that acknowledge your reality rather than dismissing it. It's about connecting with others who understand, even if those connections are rare. It's about developing strategies that work for your specific kind of mind, rather than trying to force yourself into approaches designed for different types of thinking. Most importantly, it's about accepting that this is your experience, validating it as real and legitimate, and moving forward with self-compassion rather than self-judgment. You didn't choose this mind, but it's yours, and learning to work with it rather than against it might be the most intelligent thing you can do.